The last instruction of the day was to recruit new members. The new member had to be asked to join by a current member and given an ID by Mr. Jones. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
By the end of the third day, the end of it, there were over 200 members.
What?
I know!
How is the school not, like, nobody in authority at the school is hearing about this?
That's so fucked up presents. That's so fucked up presents. That's so fucked up presents. That's so fucked up presents.
Welcome. Oh my God. We have a fucking new tagline. And I am going to say it right now. Are you excited?
Yeah.
This shit is about to come out of my mouth. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is That's So Fucked Up, a comedy podcast about things that make you say, ugh, that's so fucked up. Do you like it?
I do.
I might include cults and crime, like a comedy podcast about cults and crime and everything that makes you say, ugh, that's so fucked up.
I like it. Well, what do you expect from me? This is my face.
No, I know. I
hate it. She's like, I hate it.
Wait,
Let me try again. I love it.
Which one do you love more though?
The second one.
Okay, cool. So a comedy podcast about cults, crime, and things that make you say, ugh, that's so fucked up.
Ugh. I love that part.
Right? I know, it's fun. Ugh. You guys, welcome. It's the same show. We have a new tagline, same co-hosts. What's up? This is us. I'm Ashley Love Richards.
And I'm Fallon Morey.
And we're trying things out. Funnily enough, we're experimenting on an episode about experiments. The funny thing is that I forgot that this is actually That's So Fucked Up Presents, a spinoff of That's So Fucked Up. So I kind of did the wrong intro, but you guys, this is That's So Fucked Up Presents. And this season is about social psychological experiments and how they are generally pretty fucked up and how they all essentially take us to one conclusion, which we'll get to later. Last week we talked, well, it was actually the week before last, because last week we took a quick break from Presents to talk about American Nightmare and the kidnapping of Denise Huskins. But before that, we talked about the Stanford prison experiment where they locked 18 kids up in a basement and they assigned half of them guard roles and half of them prisoner roles, and things got real fucked up.
Well, I think that they were always on the trajectory to get super fucked up, given how they led everybody into their roles.
Yeah, and that's what we're finding here is like, oh, the studies show that essentially everybody's evil. And they generally mostly show that people will conform.
People will be evil if you say, hey, go in there and be evil.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like an authoritarian figure and you say like, hey, this is a good cause and, you know, there's enough social pressure around you and blah, blah, blah. Like Hitler didn't just come in like, let's fucking murder everybody. So this is actually an episode kind of about Hitler because that's how the experiment started. And then basically over the course of 5 days, a couple hundred high school kids essentially turned into Hitler Youth.
Whoa, that escalated quickly.
You might need to go somewhere. I think you killed somebody, Brick.
And I killed a guy with a trident.
Yeah. Oh, too good. Anchorman. So, yeah, you guys, today we are going to be continuing the psychotic psychology and talking about the third wave. So let's get into it, shall we?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready. I've been waiting for this one for like 2 weeks. I'm so stoked.
And I actually have been looking at this story for like over a month, as I tend to.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of poke around it for a long time and dance around it before I do it for some reason.
I can picture you like dance around it, gets in a fire, and you're like, this one's interesting.
I'm like, I'll watch this documentary. Okay, I'll get back to it later because now I'm going to look up weird shit that's going on TikTok, which Is another Presents coming up, you guys? Another season of Presents, and wow,
Yeah.
civilization as we know it is collapsing before our eyes.
For TikTok.
Yeah, it's fucking wild there, you guys. But let's get into the show. Like I keep talking about, Squirrel. Hi.
I was going to say, this is usually the part where you blame me and say, like, come on, Fallon, let's get moving. What are you doing?
Fallon, cut it out. Okay, so we're going to start off with Ron Jones. Ron Jones is the teacher in this scenario who made this wild experiment happen. He was a history teacher in California at Cubberley High School in Palo Alto. The kids in Palo Alto were upper middle class. They were generally bright. They really, really liked and trusted Mr. Jones. He was the teacher that you could call Ron, you know?
Oh,
Oh, hey, Ron. You know that teacher in high school?
the cool guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He was totally the cool guy. Everybody often said that he was their favorite teacher. And, you know, he was just very trusted and beloved by these generally pretty clean cut and well-behaved 15-year-old kids. I mean, I can't say what they were getting up to on the weekends, but, you know, at school, they were pretty good kids. I was just thinking like, you know, my extracurricular activities when I was 15 were not so clean cut.
And as predicted, my extracurriculars when I was 15 were numerous and many. Like now, no different.
I was in debate club, chess club. I was on the dance team.
I was not in debate club, but I was part of Model United Nations. So,
Of course you were. And that's why I love you. Okay, so Ron was a member of the organization Students for a Democratic Society. And in the 60s, that was considered an organization that was a part of the, quote, new left, far left-wing advocates who believed in crazy stuff like anti-war and, you know,
silly stuff like equality, just nice things.
yeah, you know, students who are about to graduate and get thrown unconsensually into a war. So, you know, they wanted to invoke young people. That's not the right word.
En vogue.
Yeah, that's not it. That's not it, Ashley.
No. Invoke.
Invoke. They wanted to inspire. There we go. Students and young people to believe in their actions and take power for their future and shit. Jones was also a supporter of the Black Panthers, and he would talk about subjects that were very taboo at the time. Apparently, he brought in a communist, a Klansman, and a member of the American Nazi Party.
I mean, I think sometimes it's okay for those to not be acceptable.
Totally. I just think that he was trying to show that there was a full picture.
This was in the 50s or the 60s?
The third wave experiment was created by Jones in 1967. It was done with the sophomore world history class. One of the students in the class asked a question that many of us have asked over the decades. I know I have. They said, quote, how could the German populace, this doesn't sound like a quote from a kid, but the German populace. Yeah, I don't know who the fuck said this because it wasn't a 15-year-old, all right? How could the German populace claim ignorance of the slaughter of the Jewish people? How could the townspeople, railroad conductors, teachers, doctors claim they knew nothing about concentration camps and human carnage? How can people who were neighbors and maybe even friends of the Jewish citizen say they weren't there when it happened? Okay, this was paraphrased in Jones's words. A 15-year-old did not say that. So the goal was to teach his students that once democracy is taken away, so is their individuality. He wanted them to learn firsthand how fascism takes away a person's sense of self. Just a quick, totally non-political message, but democracy is important and dictatorship is scary. And, you know, just read some news and think about that. Although I think I'm probably speaking to the choir, so, you know. Anywho, the project's motto was, and this developed over the course of 5 days, and it was strength through discipline, strength through community, strength through action, strength through pride.
Wait, isn't that very close to like one of the Nazi slogans?
That's a maybe for me, dog. So there was no immediate record of the experiment except for 2 small blips in the school newspaper. That's part of the reason that it's not a real experiment, because it needs to be recorded. And then Ron Jones wrote an article in 1976, and that was the first time he went on record with the whole story. So he didn't say anything for 11 years.
Whoa. And at that point, it's not a report of an experiment. It's just like a story, like a newspaper story. It's not a scientific recounting.
Exactly. The first day of the third wave, Jones wrote strength through discipline on the chalkboard. And discipline had 2 meanings. It appeared that he meant focus, drive, and obedience, not punishment.
Ah, got it.
Mr. Jones wanted to show the class how discipline can both make the students' lives successful, like an athlete or scientist with control and training, and can make them adhere to the rules even if they don't want to. And, you know, you lift weights and do shit where you have to learn choreography and whatnot. Like sometimes you have to have discipline and get up and train and practice and stuff, even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
So this is making sense so far. One exercise he did with the class was to have them enter the room and sit down in a specific manner. The class then repeated this until they got it right. You guys, whenever you hear me go, that means I'm doing something in air quotes.
It's the out loud version of the lowercase, uppercase, sarcastic writing.
The SpongeBob meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the class repeated this until they got it right in Mr. Jones's eyes. He nitpicked everything the students did wrong, from not walking in unison to not sitting in the proper pose that he wanted. The point of the sitting drill was to show them that the proper sitting posture helped them learn better, and striving to do something correctly shows discipline. And actually, if you sit up proper, you can actually like breathe better and enunciate better and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was amazed at how fast the class learned to walk in quietly and sit at their desks in the proper posture. From starting in the hallway to sitting at their desks, it took them 5 seconds once they got it down.
Oh.
Bing, bam, boom.
Whoa.
Mr. Jones was curious to find out if the students were just temporarily following along or if this was some sort of instinct they had to become uniform. He added a few new rules at the end of the class, like standing next to their desk to speak, always carrying pencil and paper to take notes, only calling him Mr. Jones if they wanted to speak. Like I said, he was previously the cool teacher who went by first name with the students.
Ron.
What's up, Ron? Yeah. The students who didn't adhere to the rules were asked to repeat themselves until they were following his commands. It didn't take long for them to fall in line. Another bonus of this experiment was that he noticed the whole class participating in the conversation, not just a few who always spoke up. Students spoke more intelligently and seemed to grasp what he was teaching easier. That all happened in just the first day. So while this was supposed to be a one-day experiment, he was like, this is super interesting. Let's see what else happens.
Yeah. What else can I get them to do?
So Mr. Jones was shocked but pleased to see the class sitting at their desks at attention when they got there the next day. The second day was when he named the movement the third wave. In surfing lingo, the third wave is always the strongest wave in a set.
Ah.
So usually sets of waves come in 3 and the third wave's the strongest.
Interesting. Whoa. I'd have never known that.
Little surfer culture background for you. No. Everybody's gone surfing. Surfing USA. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going for. He noticed how quickly the students adhered to the rules the first day, so he decided to continue his experiment. However, he wasn't totally sold on continuing. He wasn't sure if he was right to keep up the experiment or not. So he was kind of debating with himself how ethical this was, you know?
Right. Did he tell them, hey, we're going to do an experiment and here's the first thing? Or did he just that day write that on the board and go, okay, here's the new thing now?
No, dude, he was just rolling with the punches.
Like, this is real life now.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, this is real life now.
Oh, got it.
Obviously, he was having a bit of a moral conundrum, but he decided to keep it going. He had a lot of questions and started to get curious about the human brain as he noticed the kids following all of the commands from the day before. So this day, he wrote strength through community on the chalkboard. Jones wanted the kids to understand that being a community and coming together for the same cause would make them feel like they were part of something bigger than just themselves. The exercise Jones taught the class that day had to do with using their voices to create a community in the classroom. He had them repeat the motto over and over: strength through discipline, strength through community, in unison, one at a time, in groups of 2 and 3. Jones noticed the kids looking at each other with a sense of pride as their voices joined together in various ways. At the end of the second day, Jones created a salute that resembled a Nazi salute to Hitler. In the third wave salute, students use a cupped right hand raised to signify a wave. So it's not super actually very Nazi-like at all. They just had a symbol.
Some sort of gesture.
A symbolic gesture that they were to salute each other both in and outside of the classroom with. Also, I believe it was made pretty clear that your grade was dependent on how much and well you participated.
Ah. So they felt like they had to participate in whatever now was happening because their grade was dependent on it.
Exactly. So that already makes mistakes unfair.
And if you write up the experiment, you would have to note, like, students were given the pressure of a bad grade if they didn't participate. So later you can be like, hey, they all participated. Isn't it amazing? Well, yeah, you told them they'd fail if they didn't.
Exactly. Like in the Stanford prison. You know what? No spoilies. Okay. Go listen to the episode if you have not yet.
Yeah.
We got great feedback on it.
It was really good.
It's a wild ride, you guys. So you'd be sent out of class if you had any doubts or spoke about it. So you had to go along. That should be made very clear. They were told that faculty and staff knew everything, and the librarian was shocked when student protester Sherry Tousley told her what was going on. So obviously not everyone knew. Apparently, the librarian told Sherry that she was born in Nazi Germany and this was scary and that this kid needed to do something. What the fuck?
You're the adult. You do something. I mean, she might be terrified, though, if she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, but you can't say to a 15-year-old, oh, this is really scary. You should go fix that. She's like, I'm already protesting and risking failing class. Like, what more do you want me to do? I'm 14, lady. So Sherry went at night and posted negative posters about the third wave. And in the morning, they were all gone. And Ron Jones is like, I don't recall telling any kids to sweep the school or anything. Are you sure, Ron? Are you sure? But yeah, all the posters were gone. So freedom of speech out the window. But you want to know what's crazy? On the third day, that's when shit blew up in a fucking crazy way. Students from across the whole school wanted to join the movement. 13 kids skipped class that day to go to his class.
Wow.
And there's probably, 30 kids in the class or something. So by the third day, we've got like 40 wannabe Nazis.
Wow.
Not wannabe Nazis. We have to keep remembering about the grade and, Ron acting like a dictator, but it's pretty wild what happens. On the third day, Jones wrote service through action on the classroom chalkboard. Students were issued an ID card verifying their membership, and he put a red X on the back of 3 of the cards. The students who got those cards were to report to Jones anything they saw that was out of line.
Wow.
Snitches get stitches.
So like police, basically.
Yeah. If people aren't doing the salute, they're supposed to go tell him, all that kind of stuff. Jones became quite surprised that over 20 students reported back to him that day.
Like telling on each other?
Yeah, so he told 3 to report, and an extra 17 kids took it upon themselves to be like, hey, I heard so-and-so talking shit. Hey, so-and-so didn't salute me back in the hall, or whatever.
Wow.
You know?
What? That's wild.
I freaking know.
Whoa.
In their lesson about service through action, Mr. Jones taught the class that discipline and community don't work if there is no action. He gave them the example of the other classes they were in that pitted them against each other in competition, like gym or English. In those classes, the students could feel, what?
Like gym or English. And I'm just like, yeah, all the cage death matches we had in English, just 2 kids slunging it out on the floor.
Okay, well,
I read Shakespeare better. That was iambic pentameter, you dumbass. Like, I'm sorry.
look, I don't mean to make you feel bad, but 1 in 5 Americans, or 1 in 4, 20 or 25%, are illiterate, which I think is a really sad, fucked up fact.
That is sad. I wouldn't think the like wild gang of being in English class. It's like gym or English.
Cage fights in English. But his point was, you know, in those environments, there's not really a team. They're not a part of something. They can feel alone. So they can feel degraded and may not succeed in that environment.
I wonder if these kids were walking into their other classes and continuing the behaviors. Were they walking into their other classes and sitting like upright in their chairs and standing at their desks? And if so, were the other teachers like, what in the fuck is happening here?
Dude, I don't know, but some of the kids were for sure live, laugh, loving it, you know?
What does that mean?
Live, laugh, love. That's what they put on all those fucking posters.
Does that mean that they were like into it?
Yeah, they were living it.
Oh, okay.
They were loving it. They weren't really laughing about it. They were very serious, but otherwise, the saying fits.
Okay.
Jokes are so funny when you have to explain them. In class, students began to stand and tell Ron how much they were enjoying these lessons and why hadn't he taught like this before? What the fuck?
Wow.
Jones found this really interesting because he realized he was giving them information in a very controlled setting, so they were absorbing it much easier and at a faster pace. Sounds super ethical.
So we could have used this for good and taught them about, you know, the Roman Empire or whatever, but no, let's use this to teach them how to become fascists.
Well, I just really wish that it was run as a proper experiment. It would have been really interesting to see what the results were. The results are still very interesting. It just sucks knowing that grades and pressure from the teacher himself were a factor.
Right.
Because peer pressure is definitely, I think, something that should be factored in.
Of course.
But being pressured and either rewarded or chastised by the person who's in authority kind of taints it.
Like every other experiment in the 50s, 60s.
Every other one, yeah. Students were each assigned a specific job on this day. They were to recruit other members, design a third wave banner, stop other people from entering the classroom and other security positions because people are like trying to get in on this. It's so weird.
Where are they all sitting? There's no desks.
Oh yeah, they're standing, they're sitting on the floor.
Jesus.
It's cuckoo. My Lord, I forgot about this tidbit. He also assigned kids to train and convince 20 children at the adjacent elementary school that sitting in this posture was the best for learning. I don't think it would ever be a part of any assignment or study today to say, hey, go groom those children at the local elementary school into this particular belief. I guess that's not really grooming them, but just like, stay away from the kids, man.
Well, you'd have to be able to give consent for experiments anyway, and you can't officially give consent now until you're 18. So you wouldn't be able to like just go to the elementary school and be like, would you like to be a part of my experiment on electric shocking people, Timmy?
I'll give you some candy, Timmy. Yeah. There's a lot of things wrong here.
Wow.
Some people were to remember and write down every person's name who was in the third wave. Some were reading information and presenting it to the class the next day. And at the end of class, one of the students, who was usually a loner in school, offered to be his security guard because he thought that someone would try to harm Mr. Jones. Like, this kid usually sat by himself and, didn't really have any friends. And he was like, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to
spread my wings a little bit.
Yeah. So the kid felt proud and that he finally had a purpose when usually he hated school and felt like an outsider. And the last instruction of the day was to recruit new members. The new member had to be asked to join by a current member and given an ID by Mr. Jones. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
By the end of the third day, the end of it, there were over 200 members.
What?
I know.
How is the school not like nobody in authority at the school is hearing about this?
Or they're just like, oh, that's that kooky teacher running a crazy experiment. I think definitely some of the teachers were like, what the fuck? But yeah, the 60s, what a wild time. Am I right? Woo.
Jesus.
Teachers in the school went along with the experiment, and so did the principal. But by the third day, when this mass blow up of members happened, some of them, rightfully so, started to get worried, but not worried enough to speak up and end the project. Because I have heard from teachers that there's a lot of kind of school politics and people are trying to make sure they get their tenure and blah, blah, blue. They were just like, that seems weird and not great, but
we'll allow it.
We'll allow it. The wave kids were bullying those that didn't belong to the group, and they were also tattling for every infraction they could find other group members doing. Many of the kids took it very seriously and continued to live their lives outside of school as if they were in fact part of a special group. Kids were getting a power trip from being inside the group and thinking they were more important than those who weren't.
Wow.
Ugh. 3 girls in the class were not doing well in the experiment. They were the straight A kids who learned best by reading lectures and taking tests, so this style of teaching didn't suit them. Some of the third wave members kicked the girls out of class because they felt they weren't complying to all the rules. And Mr. Jones was just like, well, you guys are gonna...
Them's the breaks.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys do what you think is right, because he's trying to see how Lord of the Flies they're gonna go. Which we're reading in book club right now, you guys. And if you've ever wanted to be a part of a book club that also does documentaries, because reading a book every month is a lot, then you should join the Patreon, patreon.com/tsfu, because that's just one of the many cool free perks that you get. So yeah, he's like, well, exactly. Them's the breaks, kids. The girls then went and told their parents what had happened. And some of the parents in turn talked to their rabbi. Jones received a call from a rabbi. At first, the rabbi was skeptical about an experiment like this, but after Jones explained it, he understood and wished him well. Jones thought about how this must be what it was like to have the clergy not ask too many questions and look the other way. The thing is, although it was tainted, it was and is a super important study in human behavior.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
It's not a scientific experiment, but it's a very interesting study.
I would argue that the things they do at school they think are tied to their grade, but continuing to act the same way at home is not tied to their grade. So that's all them being part of that.
Exactly. Just now starting to live in that mentality. The evening of the third day, one of the parents broke into the classroom and ransacked it. He was a retired Air Force, I was going to say colonel. That's colonel, but why do they spell it like that? It's ridiculous. He was a retired Air Force colonel who had fought in World War II and spent time in a German prisoner of war camp. And understandably, this project upset him greatly.
Oof.
Jones walked into the class Thursday morning and found the man sitting on the floor. He told Jones about the men he knew who were killed in the war. He could barely talk, but asked Jones to get him some help. So Jones called the man's wife, and she had a neighbor come with her to help her walk her husband home. Later, Jones and the man talked at great length about the incident, but at that time, Jones was even more concerned about how the experiment was starting to affect people. By the third night, he was like, wow, this is affecting people kind of crazy, but I'm going to keep it going.
Yeah, you literally triggered PTSD symptoms in a war veteran over your experiment in your class. It's probably time to think about, shutting her down.
Is it though? On the fourth day, he wanted to terminate the project because he thought it had gotten out of control, which it had. He says, quote, I was exhausted and worried. Many students were over the line. The third wave had become the center of their existence. I was in pretty bad shape myself, end quote. He worried about how deeply into the dictator role he had gotten himself. He found that he was acting as a dictator even when he didn't need to be acting that way. Like the kids were acting like wave members when they didn't need to be. He felt that he was so deep into this project that he was forgetting why he started it or where it was supposed to be going. He also did worry that his students would end up doing something they would regret if they already hadn't. Part of him wanted to stop the experiment then and there, but he knew that if he left the students hanging like that, it would cause more confusion than anything else. He thought it would be too damaging and painful to just end it and leave them with these questions and no resolution. Oh, Ron, how misguided you are.
Well, rather than leave them with questions, let's sink them deeper.
For 2 more days. And then leave them with just as many questions and more shame than before. Ooh. He was also aware of how the project was affecting the rest of the school and was disrupting learning in other classes. Students weren't able to focus in other classes as the third wave was becoming more important than anything else. So as he's like, I don't know about this, he teaches his class about strength through pride on that fourth day.
Great. Little nationalism always calms everyone down.
I mean, first he's saying strength through discipline, strength through unity. These are okay, right? Hey, a little bit culty for sure, but good stuff, community and hard work. But might I remind you that it says in the Bible that pride is a sin?
Well, this wasn't a biblical experiment.
I know, Fallon. I'm just saying, as a red-blooded American who is very into... I couldn't even do it. Christ is my Lord and Savior, as you know. Do you know what, you guys? That is literally no shade to you if Christ is your jam or Jesus or whatever. I love that for you as long as it's not hurting anybody and it's making you feel good, you know? So anyways, strength through pride. Yeah, little nationalism always douses the fire.
Yeah. Like football fans, they always get way calmer when they paint their faces, their team colors, and go shirtless to cold football games with Go Tigers on their chests.
Yeah, they're so docile.
Super chill in that state.
Now, 80 students in his classroom on the fourth day.
Whoa.
So remember the previous day, there was 200 friends of the wave, you know?
Friends.
In the movement. And how many students in the class to begin with? Like 13 or something?
If it's like any other classroom, probably like 20.
I can't find it in my notes quick enough. I don't know why I used dolphin noises or whales as I was searching.
I don't know that dolphins or whales make that noise. Okay.
You know what? That's a whale, and you know it. So he told his class that pride is more than banners and salutes. Pride is something no one can take from you. Pride is knowing that you are the best and that can't be destroyed. Whoa!
Whoa.
To be fair, this is what like the Hitler Youth was being taught.
Yeah.
And it was like, yay!
You're the best.
Flags and little outfits and whatnot. So Jones told the class that the real reason for the third wave, this is good. For our podcast listeners, I just had to stop to put my hands over my fucking temple and eyeballs really quick because I can't like even. So he said that the real reason for the third wave, and mind you, this is when he's like really questioning the ethics of this whole thing, is that this is a nationwide organization that they were a part of, and hundreds of other high schools were also participating. And across the country, other teachers were also recruiting and teaching discipline to students who would be indoctrinated into the organization, and eventually they would all take over the country. He told them that they were a selected group of special students that were specifically chosen for this.
Or the auto scheduler just happened to place you in his classroom for the semester. Like, what the hell?
Bro, I know this story and I'm on the edge of my seat, okay? Jones told the class that there would be a special rally on Friday for members only. And at that point, they would finally meet the leader of this movement.
Sorry. All I could think was wear your members only jacket. Like, I don't know what that pops into my head.
Is that from something?
There used to be like a company called Members Only, and they had jackets and shirts and stuff you could buy.
Oh, like the antisocial social club?
Yes.
Really, though? Because are you that antisocial? Because you're all wearing the same shirt, which kind of unifies you. And you can buy a shirt to be in the club. And that's not how, I don't know. Is that how secret clubs work?
I don't know.
Anyways, Jones said that a student in the class had brought a magazine article in that just happened to have an advertisement that said the third wave on it. It was probably for a fucking
Vibrator.
board shorts or something.
See, that's where I always go.
Jeez, Fallon.
No, I don't know.
I was going to say for something beach related.
Oh, I was just going to say once a dildo salesman, always a dildo salesman. That's what they say.
Fallon Mori. A bag of dildos in a dream. A suitcase full of dildos. My bad.
Coming out next year from Penguin Books. Not really, guys.
But why not is my question. So like I was saying, they saw this ad that said the third wave that was probably totally for surf wax or something. And the students were all excited because they thought this was some sort of secret message. So Jones went along with it and said it was a secret message just for the members of the movement, although it was a total coincidence.
Whoa.
So on the 5th day of the experiment was the rally. About 200 students sat in an auditorium-style classroom waiting to meet the leader of the third wave movement. There was a TV in front of the classroom and some third wave banners hung around the room. There were guards at the doors to the room to make sure no one who wasn't in the movement could get in. Jones also had some friends of his inside the classroom posing as reporters. They had cameras and were taking photos and video the entire time. And there is actually almost no original footage of the experiment. Like, I couldn't find it. Our research assistant who helped us with this, I think it was Tony. I don't know. You guys are all amazing. But we couldn't find any clips. I'm definitely wondering where the fuck that shit went. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's kids.
Maybe.
I feel like that's probably it.
But didn't they do like a movie or a documentary a couple years ago where they talked about it? And I thought they had clips on that thing.
They did a documentary. I don't remember there being any clip.
Oh, did they do like reenacted stuff? Probably. Sometimes they do that.
I don't know. I watch a lot of documentaries.
You do. Like more than any other person that I know.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I don't fucking know. They also made a movie about it,
Oh, okay.
but I think it's in a different language.
If he was trying to keep it kind of secret and quiet at the time, he probably wouldn't have had somebody out there filming kids in the hallways and their behavior to others, because it was supposed to be like at first, like on the down low, like only in this class, only if they're a member.
Dude, nothing was on the down low.
Oh,
By the third day, there was 200 students in this shit. Fourth day, there's like 80 students in his classroom.
yeah.
Kids around school are going up saluting people. One kid reported being bullied. He wasn't even in the fucking class.
Wow.
People were taking it super far.
Whoa.
So Jones began by reciting their motto, which all of the students replied in unison as an act of allegiance: strength through discipline, strength through action, etc. Many students reported feeling scared at this time, worried about what was going to happen next, and it's said that the air seemed to go out of the room and tension was very high.
Interesting.
Which I know that feeling when you walk into a room and you're like, whoa, you could cut this place with a knife.
Yeah.
So apparently it was an extremely tense atmosphere. Well, there's like 200 kids chanting strength through discipline.
Whoa.
That's going to make anybody feel a tense atmosphere. So the lights were turned off and the TV was turned on, and Jones left the room. Students were focused because all they could see on the TV was white fuzzy. No one moved as they sat there and tried to understand what was happening. One student said that they were trying to make something out of the TV snow, as if an image would appear. They're like, oh, is this some kind of like magic eye trick or some shit? So a few minutes passed by while the students watched the TV with a fuzziness until people started to get even more tense. Someone in the back of the room yelled that there was no leader. Kids started to turn around, looking shocked and scared and confused. They started to stand up. Some kids tried to run out of the room, but Mr. Jones told the kids to sit down and listen. He said to them, quote, "There is no leader. There is no such thing as a national youth movement called the third wave. You have been used, manipulated, shoved by your own desires into the place you now find yourself." Super cool how he's shaming the children. "You are no better or worse than the German Nazis we have been studying. You thought that you were the elect, that you were better than those outside this room. You bargained your freedom for the comfort of discipline and superiority. You chose to accept the group's will and this big lie over your own conviction. You think to yourself that you were just going along for the fun, that you could extradite yourself at any moment. But where were you heading? How far would you have gone? Let me show you your future."
Whoa.
Yeah, you're like, can I get a second?
Hold on. I need to
Yeah, that's a lot to take in.
wow. I can't imagine how bad these kids would feel.
Oh my God, right?
I mean, at this point, World War II is 20 years ago only. It's not like a distant memory, and they're probably still updating history textbooks,
Oh my God.
and it's toward the current events at the end. And he basically was like, congratulations, you guys all would have been Nazis. Wow.
I think that you could have explained the lesson that was to be learned here without totally shaming the fuck out of these kids.
I want one of the kids to stand up and be like, well, you did kind of tell us we had to do this for a grade.
Yeah.
He'd been like, shut up, Todd.
Somebody take him away and they'd still be confused.
Okay. I'm done processing. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. You ready for this? At this point, he turns on a screen projector and shows them a video with image of Hitler, concentration camps, and German soldiers blindly obeying, just to really rub it in their faces.
Wow.
The last frame of the video was an image that read, "Everyone must accept the blame. No one can claim that they didn't in some way take part." Also, I don't know if he said this later in an interview, but it's in the present tense, so I feel like he said it at that time. He reports feeling sick to his stomach at that point and saying, "What I have witnessed has really sickened me." Actually, whenever he said that, it's like, dude, fuck you.
Fuck off, Ron.
Yeah, Ron.
You
sicken
sicken me.
Jinxies, you owe me a Coke. My stomach actually hurts, you know?
Yeah, I feel like a little awful right now.
I know.
I'm gonna punch that guy in the face.
Yeah,
Is he still alive?
he is. Maybe. So no one in the class moved or made a sound as they all were seeming to digest what was happening. Students started to frantically ask questions about what was going on. He said that he told them that they all would have fallen for this if they were in Nazi Germany. And through the experiment, they could feel what it was like to be tricked into believing they were part of something great, even if it was a lie. He told them that they saw what it was like to fear being left out or fear being punished if they didn't go along, but also the pleasure of being right and being on what they thought was the winning side. Project much, Ron?
Whoa.
But still, it's fucking interesting. He just went about this so terribly. He explained that the students also learned what it was like to be a part of something, then feel shame and want to erase that from their history.
Whoa.
Inducing shame into children is not a great way to teach them. Just, FYI.
I wonder if any of them had like lasting psychological issues after this.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Yeah. Actually, in the documentary that I watched, which is in the source notes, they talked to a lot of kids that were in the class who were adult, obviously.
Right.
And they showed a class reunion where Ron just like shows up and people have very mixed reactions. And people also have pretty mixed feelings about the experiment. Some of them are like, it was an invaluable lesson to learn and blah, blah, blah. One guy's like, I don't think that he was running an experiment. I think he was trying to teach kids how to be fascists.
And he got caught, so he had to end it.
Yeah, people definitely talked about like how ashamed they felt.
I wonder how parents reacted when they got the down low from their kids.
Well, I mean, he did end up getting fired. So I'm sure that had something to do with parents saying they wanted that to happen.
Wow.
Jones predicted that if the experiment worked, the students would not want to admit that they were part of the third wave once it was concluded. Most students actually didn't talk about the experiment for several years because they were embarrassed or didn't want people to know an experiment like this took place. So yeah, they carried shame for years.
Wow.
After Jones explained what the project was about and that it was concluded, students started to cry or were in shock. Some of the students that had gotten really into it, like the kid who started to be his bodyguard, were really upset and didn't want things to go back to the way that they were before.
Whoa.
Because like pre-third wave, he was nobody. He sat by himself at lunch alone and didn't have any friends and didn't have any sense of power and belonging. So he was like, oh, boo, I liked that.
Wow.
And they did discuss the project throughout the rest of the year and what they learned from it, but most students were embarrassed about the rally.
Well, it's interesting because when we talked about, I know it's not an experiment, we talked about Chowchilla and how these kids didn't have anything to be ashamed of. It was just like something they had done to them. And they were embarrassed to be associated with being survivors of something that they had no control over. And these kids are the same way. Like they went through something they had zero control over, really, being a part of it first. A lot of them.
Well, apparently it was made pretty clear. Like if you were an active party member, you would get an A. If you were passive, just kind of like, you'd get a C. And if you revolted successfully, you'd also get an A. But if you tried to revolt unsuccessfully, you'd fail.
Wow.
So kids, as so many humans, wanted to be liked and did things that they would not like to admit today.
Right.
They were scared of being caught or getting hurt, whether that be their grade being hurt or hurt socially, being outcasted by other kids or whatever. So yes, there were the kids who obviously were going home and like Heil Hitlering at their fucking parents and telling them how sick this experiment was and blah, blah, blah. And then there were a lot of kids who obviously were trying to get a good grade. That's important in school.
Wow.
He was let go from his position as a high school teacher the following year. The school board elected him out due to his over-the-top teaching style. He was 1 year away from earning his tenure at Coverly High School.
Whoa.
Yeah, ouch. Jones was not able to find another high school teaching position after this experiment because they were like, no. Aren't you the guy who almost started a whole Nazi regime?
Yeah, I think
We're going to take a pass, buddy.
Yeah, sorry. It's going to be a no from us.
Yeah.
Hard pass.
So after his firing, he became the director for an alternative school and then worked in a school for physically and mentally disabled students where he taught theater and sports. In the documentary that I watched called Lesson Plan that came out in 2011, Jones said he was teaching people with mental challenges how to write poetry.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I just think everybody so greatly benefits from having a creative outlet. So in 2008, Jones got to visit the film set of Die Welle. It looks like Die Well, but it's a German movie, so, you know.
Oh.
And he got to talk to the cast and creators about his experience. He's also an author, playwright, professional speaker, and artist. And in an interview, he remarked that he was surprised by the results of the
experiment.
Yep. He said that he didn't expect his students to take to fascism right away like they did. He wants people to take away from this experiment that they should always speak up for themselves and for those who can't speak out. Don't be complacent when you feel that something is wrong, because fascism can take place anywhere. He realizes that this was a dangerous experiment, and he said it was a big error by a very young teacher, and he would never do something like that again.
Whoa.
In an interview, one of the former students, Mark Hancock, spoke about his experience being a member of the third wave. He said that his feelings during the experiment were those of having fun at first, and then being confused, and then scared. The students became confused by Jones's personality change during the middle of the experiment. He really took over the dictator role and became strict, unsmiling, and many of the kids became scared of him towards the end when he had previously been like the cool, awesome teacher.
Yeah, I'm wondering if like after that was over, he probably could never again go back to like, can you imagine like looking at the kids the next day after that rally, like the Monday after that rally? Like, I'm sure it was the most uncomfortable class.
Yeah.
You'd never be able to go back to being like the cool guy because no one would trust you again.
Yeah, you're like, hey guys, what's up?
Maybe not, guys. Okay.
Yeah. Mark felt that Jones was able to break down trust among the classmates by turning them on each other. No one wanted to speak out because they didn't want to get in trouble. Even if they started to find the experiment was going too far, they didn't say anything. When he looks back on the project, he can see what the lessons were. Be careful who you trust. Our freedoms are important, such as freedom of speech and expression. Stick to your values and speak up against people who go against them. And he strongly believes he should participate in democracy and play a role in our government, not blindly letting people lead. So the third wave in the media, there was a book written by Jones in 1981 called No Substitute for Madness. Also in 1981, a made-for-TV film called The Wave aired on primetime. Primetime television. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. Prime time.
You'd have to be in front of the TV at like 8 o'clock. Just way past my bedtime even today. And this was actually then made again as an after-school program that won an Emmy. There is a historical fictional book based on this incident that also came out in 81 called The Wave. So in 81, they were just doing a lot, kind of doing the most.
I mean, they were doing the most because that was my birth year.
Yeah. So they're like, Fallon's here. Let's get busy.
Let's get busy and talk about no.
Yeah. You know, there's been a German movie made in 2008 and a couple documentaries, including the one that I mentioned called The Lesson Plan, made in 2010. Jones helped write both a play and a musical titled The Third Wave, and they have been performed all over the world. Yeah, it's Wee!
What would the musical numbers be like? I'm guessing.
Sit, stand, come to attention. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty good.
Sit and stand and come to attention. The wave is required reading in many German classrooms, and it's important for students to learn how a dictatorship can happen and how to stop it from happening again. It's also taught in numerous classes in the US and Israel.
We learned about it in all my social psych classes, like just a blip in the lesson, but not in depth.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, because it's not like a fish, right? But it is still very interesting observations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's freaking all, folks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was like surprisingly like tense at the end there. I was like, I want it to be over. I want this experiment over.
Right? You're like, end it now. It's not going well.
Sort of like when you were doing Stanford and I was like, let me out of this basement. It's dark in here.
I was like, no, not for 2 episodes, bitch.
It's very nerve-wracking.
Well,
I definitely went, ugh, a couple times.
Ugh, that's so fucked up. I know, right?
Definitely.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
How fitting.
And I have a new outro for us to try too.
Okay, let's do it.
So it's, well, that was real as fuck and real fucked up.
All right.
Okay, I'll say the first part and then you can say the second part and we'll experiment.
Okay.
Well, that was real as fuck.
And real fucked up.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
All right, you guys, we'll see you next week for another episode of Psychotic Psychology. Dun, dun, dun. Bye.
Bye.
That's so fucked up, that's so fucked up. So fucked up, that's so fucked up.